So, we look like we're ready. But this is day one. It's about the work. And I've said that from day one. It'll always be the same message. It's about work. You got to go earn your right every year. It doesn't matter what the players are, the coaches, expectations, where you were, where you're going. We got to work, man.
Wants to throw it to Stewart. He caught it. He Stewart with a first down. Oh, yes. The big man dives down to the 31-yard line. Oh, that is beautiful.
Let me tell you something. I love this team now. I got goosebumps, gentlemen. I love this team.
Fields looking pressured, hit from behind, taken down. Aiden Hutchinson got him.
What do you think about the secondary?
Just look at the name, C.J. Gardner-Johnson. You drafted Branch.
It started off with that huge hit on Beasley.
Be pulling things out. There's a big hit right away. And boom!
Touchdown, Detroit Lions. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Goff dropped it in the bucket that time.
We're in our window now to win.
Aaron Rodgers exits the NFC North as a loser. Hey, good Friday evening, everybody. And as you can tell already, Andy won't be with us tonight, but a little news update about Andy. He is at home. He's doing well. He's adjusting to his new medications, and sounds like he's going to make it out of this whole ordeal okay, or at least as okay as he can be after something like this. So if you feel like it again, you can always reach out, let him know, that you're thinking about him, that he's good to go now, and hopefully we'll see him back in the coming weeks, but we'll see. We'll see where that leads. I know that I miss having him on the show. I'm just glad that he's okay, and that's the most important thing. So tonight, a little bit of a different show. We're still going to do the breakdown of what we got going on for the Panthers game. I'm going to get through a couple of things that I prepared that are a little bit different and kind of show some of these defense alignments and some of the personnel alignments that may be familiar to us this Sunday. But we're entering the second quarter. Lions are 3-1. Yes, we should be 4-1 around 4 p.m. on Sunday. But look, this game is matching up to be a little bit more difficult than I think people are giving credit to. And that's because they're looking at the goose egg for the Panthers. And they're not really looking a little bit deeper as to what the Panthers can really bring to the table. Yes, in my opinion, the Panthers offense completely stinks. Their defense, though, can be scary. And we just don't know what team's going to show up. We don't know which Panther team's going to show up on Sunday. Is it going to be, the team that started out hot against the Vikings? Is it going to be the team that started out hot against the Falcons? We just don't know. And we don't know what Lions team's going to show up because as of today, we've got a new injury report. So let's start there. Some concerning news, of course, out of Allen Park is whenever you have Detroit Lion players that are getting injured on a day that they're not supposed to be practicing, right? And today, Gibbs has gone down with a hamstring issue. That's all I know at this point in time. I don't know how severe it is. If you guys know anything more than I do, please drop it in the chat and let me know if you heard anything. I just haven't been able to stay as active today online as I would have liked to, but we know that Gibbs has gone down with a hamstring injury. He is questionable. He was a limited participant today, but nowhere did that show up throughout the week. So you would think that it happened today. Not real sure. More concerning news, obviously, is when Brian Branch is finally listed as out for the game on Sunday. Jason Kabinda is still out, which, again, that's not a big deal to me. Kabinda really hasn't done much for us throughout the season, other than he's a great special teams guy. But from an offensive production standpoint, he's just not somebody that I feel is going to change the game either way. A couple other guys on the injury list here that are really important is Amon-Ra. He's still suffering, this abdomen issue. And this morning, in the press conference, I know that Campbell had said they weren't going to, work him out today. He wasn't going to practice today. But he's been downgraded now to, or upgraded, I guess depends on which way you look at it, right? Glass half full or half empty, to doubtful. So Amon-Ra may be out for this Sunday. Is it the right time for Jameson Williams to come back? Is it the perfect time for Jameson Williams to come back? This may be it. We may find out on Sunday that Jameson Williams coming back may be the perfect recipe for these midseason injuries that the Lions are starting to pile up here. With having a big playmaker potential like Gibbs, not in the game, this gives Jameson Williams an opportunity to show us what we've been waiting for. Other notable injuries on the good side: Taylor Decker, Kirby Joseph, Emmanuel Mosley, Julian Okwara, Josh Reynolds, Halapuluti Vaitai, and Frank Ragnow are all questionable, right? I'm sorry, Frank Ragnow's not listed as questionable. He's totally fine. He'll be in. But all the other guys I mentioned, they're all listed as questionable. They should play. Most of them were full participants today in practice. The only one, like I said, Jahmyr Gibbs, was limited. Frank Ragnow was a non-participant because he rests typically on the Fridays before the game. That's just part of his plan. That's just part of the training plan that they've put together for him. Excuse me. So here we go. Let's get into a little bit more of these injuries here. Talk about how it affects the game as we move through this plan tonight. And there's a couple other things I wanted to talk about, like, what are the Lions doing well right now? And one of those major components is David Montgomery and what he's been able to bring to the table. And I did a little comparison with him and the rest of the league as far as running backs were concerned through Wednesday night. So, excluding the Thursday night game because that starts the new week. But before I get into that, I want to jump up actually, we'll get into that first. Let me get into Monty first. I'll jump back into the power rankings in just a second. So, like I said, what are the Lions doing well? Well, as of Wednesday night, the overall league leader for the league as far as rushing goes is Christian McCaffrey. No surprise. He's the best running back in the league right now. But he has 459 yards and 6 TDs. So he was first. Bijan Robinson was behind him at fourth. And I'm going to skip around a little bit. I think we all know that Swift is somewhere around number 2, but I really don't care. Bijan Robinson is at fourth with 318 yards and 2 TDs. Demo Montgomery is listed as 12th with 262 yards and 5 TDs. Here's the difference. Demo's only played in 3 games. The rest of these guys have played the entire season. So if Demo is just barely behind these guys, and if you were to do his average, right, he's averaging about 87 yards a game, that would put him at 349 yards on the season and firmly in third place. Had he played in the Falcons game, could he have gone for his average 87 yards? I think he could have, especially against a defense that was allowing 115 yards a game. Look, Gibbs didn't have a bad game versus the Falcons. It was just a little bit slower than I think what we're wanting to see. And that's something else that I'm going to talk about here in just a moment too. But next, I want to talk about the Monty and Jamal Williams stuff that we've seen all offseason. I've seen some of it during the preseason. So I want to address it just from my perspective. What does it mean to me, having a guy like Monty in the locker room versus a Jamal Williams? Look, they're both incredible athletes. Jamal Williams is a little bit more of, the rah-rah guy, and he's, big on being a leader, but he's kind of a quiet leader, right? He does everything by his work ethic and his chemistry that he builds with the guys in the locker room. Demo's going to do the same thing. He's not as talkative, as Jamal, but, he's still an excellent athlete and a great leader. He's somebody that's going to go in and put the work in, and that's what the guys around him need to see. If he's going to go in and day out and put the work in, they're going to follow right behind him and do the same thing, especially for the younger guys. The older guys get it. And if they don't get it, they wouldn't be on the team, right? But there was a lot of people, a lot of fans trashing Jamal Williams this last season. Or I'm sorry, after this last season, saying that he got a bunch of short yardage TDs. What a disgrace to Barry Sanders' record. And trying to say that he shouldn't have taken Barry Sanders' record. Look, I get it. You know, it's like your girlfriend broke up with you for another guy and left, and you're upset, right? I get it. Barry Sanders' record got broken. But this is, this is the NFL. These are NFL players. They're on the move constantly. And as soon as they sign their first contract, they're already halfway out the door. It's just a ticking clock, as to when that contract's done or when that next big opportunity is to trade that player, for something better. So let's kind of compare what Demo and Jamal have done. Let's look at Jamal last season and Demo this season. And because that's really the only comparison you can make, right? Both behind the same offensive line and, playing for the same city. So I could only find a couple of games that really made sense to compare. So we're going to compare the Green Bay game and the Seattle game. Jamal, I don't think ever had the opportunity of playing against KC as a Lion. So those are the games that I wanted to compare. So Monty's TDs, versus Green Bay, we all know he had 3 TDs. Heck of a game. But his TDs came from 3 yards, 2 yards, and 1 yard. Versus Seattle, he had 1 TD. That was from 4 yards out. Just for giggles, I'll let you know that versus KC, he had 1 TD from 8 yards out. But if you average all of those TDs versus Green Bay and Seattle, he's averaging 2.5 yards a TD. So how much different is that than what Williams did? Again, a lot of people, not saying you did, but a lot of people were saying, look, Jamal wasn't that great of a running back. He wasn't worth that kind of money. He only rushed from 1 yard out or 2 yards out, and that's how he got all those TDs. Look, it's not really true. It's true, but it's not true. Jamal against Green Bay last season had 2 TDs, both from 1 yard out. Versus Seattle, he had 2 TDs. The first one was from 1 yard out. The second one was 51 yards out. So right there, I think it tells you that Jamal's not just a guy that's getting you 1 yard TDs. A 51-yard score that's a long run in the NFL these days. His rush TD average. So both players, 4 TDs apiece, same opponent, same team they played for, different years. But his rush average was 13.5 yards a TD for Jamal Williams. And Demo was 2.5. Now, look, I'm not knocking Demo at all. Not at all. I think he's a great athlete. I think he's a phenomenal Detroit Lion. I'm glad that we've got him locked up for a few years. And look, I know they're not the same exact games, but it's just data, right? It's just data to make a point. And Jamal had plenty of big plays last season that set the Lions up for other TDs, right, to other players. And he helped move the ball consistently to get first downs, especially when they were needed. So the point here is, all running backs have short yardage TDs. It's just part of the game. Some just have more than others because they're the third down back or the fourth down back or the short yardage down back. And not every TD is going to be a Barry Sanders, right? 10 jukes, 30 yards east and west, and 8 missed tackles, and then 50 yards north. And if that's what you're comparing, what a Lions running game should look like, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that doesn't exist anymore. It's not the same game. This is a passing league now. And the league is not dependent upon, these big, long running plays. They're utilizing the run to set up the pass. What they're dependent upon is timing plays in the passing game. So not busted or broken plays. That's what they don't want. So anyway, sorry to kind of go off topic tonight, but I had to point this out. Look, Barry was amazing. Probably go down as one of the best Detroit Lions ever. He already is. Easily my favorite player as a fan. There's a few others that I like, but it is what it is. Not everyone's going to be like Barry Sanders. And if you're not comparing him to Barry Sanders, you're not comparing the running game to Barry Sanders. Look, I can't point to many running backs in this league outside of Christian McCaffrey that are that dynamic to really change the game on the ground. He's getting a lot of short yardage TDs too. So, all right, we'll move forward. But one thing I want to point out about Demo that I found that was interesting too. Let me blow this up for myself for just a second. I looked at his rushing stats and where he was having the most success. And I found this interesting. But Demo's not a big guy. I think he's about 5'11", 230, 220, somewhere in that range, 224 maybe. Almost identical to Jamal Williams. I think they were like an inch apart and 10 pounds apart. He's getting a lot of his action behind Frank Ragnow, to the left or to the right of Frank Ragnow, to the tune of, the ML gap is to the left of center. The MR gap is to the right of center. He has 31 attempts just in those two gaps out of 69. So he's run almost half of his attempts behind Ragnow, and that's where he's getting the bulk of his yards and his production. Off the left end is where he's having his most distance runs of 6.7 yards a touch. So I found that interesting that he's having, better opportunity through the middle. I mean, directly through the middle, not off the tackles, as much as he is right behind Ragnow. So I think that really speaks volumes to the type of player Ragnow is, and the holes that this offensive line is able to create up the middle of this offensive line. So hopefully we continue to see it. I think that the one thing that we're missing right now is Gibbs, really being able to get his feet underneath him and to get running, north and south as opposed to always east and west in the zone, rush attack. So he's just got to learn patience. I think that he has to learn a little bit of patience to kind of set up his blocks and allow those guys to work for him and not outrun his blocking. Because I feel like, from what I notice, he's kind of outrunning his blocking to a degree and not allowing it to get set up. And that comes with experience, right? It comes with time. He's a rookie. And, this time next year, I think it's going to be a totally different story. I think that Gibbs is going to be on fire. And it might happen this year. It might click. He's just got to take his hits. He's got to take his lumps, and he's got to learn. And eventually he'll get it. And he's behind one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. He's going to get it sooner rather than later. I'd rather have him playing his best ball in December anyway. If we can win from here till then and win a lot of games and get into the playoffs and Gibbs comes alive in December, perfect. I'm okay with that as a fan. Maybe not as, a coach if I was the coach, but hey, as a fan, I'm okay with that. Maybe Dan Campbell would be too. I don't know. I can't speak for him. All right. So you guys did an excellent job sending me some questions this week. And if you guys want to send in questions to have us talk about them, you can send it to info@rockedonpodcastnetwork.com. Whatever the question is about the team, preferably. And, send us whatever you want. We'll screen the best questions out to kind of make the show around it. We're limited on how much time, we're able to do this, 60 to 90 minutes every Friday and Sunday. So we usually take 5 to 10 questions. It just depends on how long it takes to answer them. But you can also direct message us to send us the questions. So question number 1, what is our take on the 3-4 defense? Is it a good matchup or this week, and can it stop the Lions offense? I felt this was a good question because I want to take a look at what the Lions have already faced. What have they already seen so far in 2023? So the Kansas City Chiefs, they run a hybrid 4-3 defense, and they have since 2019. When they hired Steve Spagnuolo, that defense was set up to play fast, stop the run, limit the passing game. The Chiefs play a lot of cover 4 when blitzing, about 19.5% in a cover 4 scheme. And they hit cover 2 about 9.5% of the time. So when the Lions went up against KC, it was a lot of cover 4, a lot of cover 2 in a 4-3 base front. When the Lions took on Seattle, they switched from a 4-3 hybrid to a 3-4 in 2022. So this was the Lions' real first taste of a 3-4 this season. From an opponent standpoint. The interesting part about Seattle's defense that I missed during the pre-show in week 2 is they have kind of like a split personality, running half the line in a 3-4-2 gap principle and the other half in a 4-3-1 gap principle. I'm not going to explain that tonight, but I found that really interesting that's how they're utilizing their guys up front to get more out of them by making, a couple of guys be more responsible for 2 gaps and the other guy is more responsible for only 1 gap, primarily your pass rushers. That was really interesting, really odd, interesting to me. I've never seen that before. I've never heard of that before. So now I really want to go look at Seattle's defense and watch some tape at some point. But I already watch 20 hours a week, so I don't know how I'll fit it in. When the Lions face the Falcons, they are they're like a man-heavy coverage team with 2 high safeties primarily. Very aggressive with the blitz, typically unleashing their linebackers as the primary blitzers. The Falcons' base, though, is a 4-2-5. So, I mean, it's not really close to the 3-4, but essentially it can be depending on how they mask it, right? Depending on what coverage schemes they want to get into and run. But it's also very similar to what the Lions run, when the Lions are in the 4-2-5. But the Falcons will also deploy, a 5-man front at times, run a 5-2-4, something that the Lions have also incorporated this offseason. And when they add more of a stand-up pass rusher, or a 3 technique and remove their nickel defensive back. So far through 3 games, the Lions have only seen a 3-4 once, right? Then they move on to the Packers. Let me throw this in there too. So against the Chiefs, they put up 368 yards of offense, including 118 on the ground. Against Seattle, they put up 418 yards of offense, including 3 TDs, 316 passing and 3 TDs. The Lions against the Falcons put up 358 yards of offense, including 115 on the ground. Then against the Packers, we all know that the Lions completely destroyed them, put up 401 yards of offense, 3 TDs on the ground for 211 rushing yards. But against the Packers, the Packers have run a 3-4 defense since 2009. They primarily use a 2-gap 3-4 version, which is a style of Vic Fangio's defense. And this defense uses a lot of quarters coverage, and one of its core principles is eliminating the downfield pass play. The Packers' run defense is allowing about 4.5 yards per rush this season, which ranks 23rd. And they also rank 29th in run stop rate. Since LaFleur took over as coach, the Packers have ranked 31st in the NFL with 4.7 yards allowed per rushing play. They have also given up the 4th most games of 150 plus rushing yards on the ground since 2019. Not good for LaFleur. But what does all this stuff mean, right? It's just stats, right? It's just information to kind of paint a picture of what the Lions are seeing this season so far. How is it going to help them win the next game? Well, the Panthers, they run a very unique 3-4 that allows the defense to disguise a 4th potential pass rusher. And giving, this unit has an extra edge, should you say, they really have multiple edge rushers on this team. More than I've seen on other teams that are very versatile. You don't know where that extra rusher is really coming from. That's how well they disguise it. It's really the extra level of disguise that kind of has me worried for this game as to how they're going to attack the Lions. And how are the Lions going to stop it? So, they still got to go through this Detroit Lions offense. They still got to figure out Ben Johnson, right? They're going to have to make adjustments, both sides of the ball. And I think that making adjustments is essential, and it's not something that we see enough of early from the Lions. They seem kind of stuck in their ways, if you will, in the beginning of the game. All right, let me bounce into the chat for just a second. Christian Road jumped in, says, "I love Jamal, but I think we got a better younger back that can do the same thing and then some." Yeah, I agree, 100%. He's definitely younger by a couple seasons, and better. I don't know yet. I think that so far what we've seen is promising. If he can continue on the trend that he's on right now, then yes, I would say that he's going to be better than Jamal. Jamal really only got last season to show himself. And that's because, Swift was there too, but Swift went down a lot last season. And that gave Jamal a lot of opportunity. And we were able to see what Jamal could do. And he's got really fresh legs. For as long as Jamal's been in the league, he has really fresh legs. Last season was the most touches I think he's ever had. Actually, I'm pretty confident that statement's true. So to answer this question, and the question is, what is our take on the 3-4 defense? Is it a good or bad matchup for the Lions offense this week? My answer is this, and I feel it's kind of simple to answer this one. The Lions are healthy. Well, albeit until today. The Lions are very healthy. They have a lot of weapons. They can adapt and make plays with the best in the league, right? The 3-4 has not been an issue yet for the Lions. But honestly, if the Panthers want to hang in the zone all day, Goff is going to tear them apart. Goff is trusted. He's trusted to call what he wants at the line. He's able to change the plays. He's one of the smartest QBs in the league. If anyone can figure it out, it's Goff. And dare I say, the Lions just need to stay focused on what the Panthers don't do well, right? Attack that, pound it until the Panthers are forced to do something and make changes of their own. When they make changes, you make changes, right? And then you pound something else, that they're not doing well. And if the Lions can keep doing this, they will have success. I don't care what defense the Lions face. They can get it done if they stay flexible. The key there is if they stay flexible. Sometimes Dan Campbell is not flexible. He stays in a rut. He doesn't make the adjustment. He's been very lucky with some of the games that he's pulled out, not so much this season, but last season, because they just weren't making the adjustments quick enough. So I think that what we're seeing now is they're willing to at least adjust a little bit sooner and maybe not wait till halftime. And it's something that I think I'm going to say a little bit later too, but people always mention the script. It's not so much of a script as if they've kind of scripted the first 15 plays of the game and how they want their offense to, get going. And these are the plays. This is what I want them to run. And those scripted plays all have options, right? They all have adjustments. So it's scripted to the point that they have a direction for the game. They have a game plan. This is the plan. We're going to stick to it until it's really broken. And then we're going to have to do something different. I love having versatile people around me, not only in life, but, at your employer, whoever you're employed with. When you have really good, versatile people around you that can do multiple things, your level of success will be exponential. So the same thing applies to a football field. The more versatile you are as a coach, as an assistant, as a coordinator, the better your team is going to be because of it. Ben Johnson, I feel, can be versatile. Whether he's allowed to be as versatile as he wants to be is the question that we don't know. So question 2, but before question 2, let me jump into the chat here. Robert Fournier, hey, welcome back, Robert. How you doing tonight? Lions need to impose their will. They do. We do need to have one of those games, right? And I think that they started out that way against Green Bay, and they really imposed their will early. And then they kind of got beat up in the third quarter, by the Zebras, and kind of made some dumb decisions at times. But they fought back, and they still won the game. They were never really in a position of losing. But that was probably the first game that we've had all season where they really jumped out and really tried to impose their will, as Robert Fournier says. So question 2 is, what are the Panthers' main defensive keys the Lions need to watch for? And how can the Lions offense stack up against the Panthers defense? I don't know if I answered this one as good as I wanted to, but thank you, Caleb from Wayland, Michigan, for the question. Really appreciate it. First off, I think the Panthers are in a little bit of trouble already entering the game. They're averaging 25.25 points per game allowed. And as I have pounded and drilled all season long already and last season, you won't win games when your defense allows more than 20 points, right? I think we've seen the proof already. The Lions offense is averaging 26.25 points per game. So just based on the numbers, they should win by 1 point. No problem. That's not imposing their will, Robert. I apologize. But I think you get my point here, right? I mean, if the law was averages, then the Lions are winning this game. And if the rule is you only go by the averages, then the Panthers stink. And they're letting up way too many points. The Lions, for instance, last season, I want to say they were allowing about 26 points per game for the defense. So how many games did we lose? A lot. It took Jared Goff to score a ton of points to win games. That's not how it's supposed to work. You're supposed to go in and limit the other team and allow your team to work, allow your team to score just enough points to win. And it shouldn't have to be a shootout every single game. There's got to be some sort of a defensive element to these games. I mean, back in the day, defense was the only thing that mattered. You remember the Tampa Bay defense, for instance. I mean, they constantly would impose their will on other teams in the league and wouldn't allow them to score many points at all. Their offense didn't have to score a ton. They still did, but they didn't have to. So my second point to this question is the Panthers have not created really a massive amount of pressure this season when compared to the Lions. As a team, they have 49 pressures, 16 sacks, 8 quarterback hits, 25 QB hurries with 3 batted balls. The interesting thing here, I'll get to that in a second. Let me compare the Lions. The Lions have put up 93 total pressures. That's 93 to the Panthers 49. 13 sacks to the Panthers 16. 15 quarterback hits to the 25 of the Panthers. And 65 quarterback hurries. 15 quarterback hits to the Panthers 8. 65 quarterback hurries to the Panthers 25. 2 batted balls to the Panthers 3. The interesting part here is this. The Panthers are getting a sack for every 3 pressures. That's insane to me. The Lions are getting a sack every 7 pressures. That's a very effective pass rush by the Panthers. So they're getting in more efficiently, more effectively. And, you know, I do see the Panthers in a 5-2-4 very often, putting 3 down and 2 up on the edge. So they got, 2 up as in a 3 technique. And they kind of go heavy, right? They'll go heavy with the nose, 2 tackles and 2 edge up front, 2 speed backers in the middle, and 4 DBs. So that could be the main reason why they're not getting a ton of pressure, but they sure are getting the sacks. And they don't have a problem getting the sacks. But this is a defense alignment that can cause problems. If the Lions are not able to get the ground game working early to open up the play action, forcing the Panthers to limit the blitz, it could be a long day for the Lions. And then that's the thing that I'm trying to get people to realize is this game is not, some pushover. It's not a gimme. There is no gimmies in the NFL. As much as we see it on paper, and again, all this is paper to me. This is a bunch of stats, data, and analysis that paints a picture about what could happen, what should happen. And if it all were to remain true, then yeah, it should happen. But we just don't know. We don't know until they line up and they play. The few key, players for the Panthers to watch out for. Number 1 is Frankie Louvu. He's the primary pass rusher as a linebacker. Louvu is lined up in the box 168 out of 208 snaps. He has posted 15 defensive stops this season, which is 4th among all players in the NFL. He has 8 pressures, 4 sacks, 1 QB hit, and 3 hurries. He's pretty effective. He can get north and disrupt timing and create pressures if he's allowed to. Gibbs and Monty, which right now Monty is going to be the only one in the game, as we know right now, will both need to key in on their blocking assignments. Now, assuming Gibbs even plays after the injury update today, whoever is back there is really going to need to step up into the lanes and get into the lanes and give contact, create contact with Louvu, whoever's coming in to fill that gap, to give Goff a little bit more time. When you allow the pressure to get to you, it's too late. They've got to step up. You've got to meet that guy head on, because he's coming down full speed and he'll run right through you. And I was watching Monty on Monra and Equinemius podcast the other day, and it was funny. He said that the hardest hit he took was when Bolton ran him over in the first game this season. Remember he got the tripping penalty? That was on Bolton, and Bolton ran him down. So I didn't view that as a big hit personally. I didn't really think it was, but then again, I'm not the one that was inside the pads taking the hit, so I don't know how it felt. But at any rate, that's what I'm talking about. You got to step up into that pocket. You got to step up into the gap and take the hit earlier. Bring the contact into him so that Goff can have just a little bit more time. So the other thing about Luvu, though, that I noticed, and I went through all of his stats and coverage, the Lions probably want to target Luvu in coverage. When he is in, force him into coverage roles where he's right now, he's only, he's got a PFF grade of 52.2 in coverage through 4 games. That's pathetic. So he's been a major liability for the Panthers in that degree. He's missing 25% of his tackles. Again, Laporta is going to make him look silly, I think. I hope. Letting up a passer rating against of 115.6 and an 81.3% completion rate with an 8.3 yards per reception rate. So again, I feel like, to get back to the question, and the question is, what are the Panthers' main defensive keys that the Lions need to watch out for, and how can the Lions offense stack up against the Panthers defense? So after going through this, number one, they're not getting a lot of pressure, but they are getting a lot of sacks. That means that the Lions are going to have to really key in on keeping these guys out of the backfield. The pressure I'm not so worried about for Goff. It's just, where are they finding these opportunities to get through the cracks? The 5-2-4, that's a difficult defense for just about anybody. And I feel like the Lions have done well against it so far. Frankie Luvu, the best pass rushing linebacker on this team for the Panthers. The Lions really need to key in on him. He's somebody that can, turn your day upside down in a hurry. But at the same time, the Lions need to attack him in the passing game. I would expect that the Lions run some play action, to target this matchup, right? Get Luvu to bite down, and then you throw it over top of him, when Laporta's crossing over. The other pass rushing threat, or the other key, is going to be Brian Burns. Burns hasn't posted the greatest numbers yet this season, but he has come up with 4 sacks on 9 pressures through 4 games. So let's be real here. He hasn't faced the top 15 offensive line since week 1. So let alone a top 2 offensive line in the Detroit Lions. So the Lions really need to key in on this guy. They need to keep him outside, of Goff's box and keep Goff protected inside that pocket. Third guy is Derek Brown, and this guy can be a game changer. I mean, Brian Burns can too, but I'm more worried about Derek Brown. In the interim here, he's posted 15 tackles with 12 stops, 0 missed tackle rate. He's got a 12.4% stop rate. Those are great numbers. That means guys getting the job done. They're just not winning games as a team, but this defense is doing some things. Brown is lined up over the tackle about 40% of the time, which means, either Taylor Decker or Penei Sewell is going to have, a tough day. He's also been splitting, what's it say here? 40% of the time and on the line, he's been splitting the gap about 50% of the time. So, he's going to try to go through either Taylor Decker or Jonah Jackson, or he's going to have to go through Sewell. And depending on who's back today, if Itai's in or if Graham Glasgow is going to move in at guard this weekend, we just don't know yet. But that's where he likes to attack. And I like our odds here. I'm looking at the lineup. Let me try to share this for just a second. Let me know if you guys can see this. So as you can see here, you see my cursor. Brown is usually lined up right here, but this is over top of the left guard. So he's gonna move out in that. This is that 5-2-4, right? You got Taylor Decker down here on the left tackle. So Brown's usually going to slide out over top of the tackle, or he's going to split right in between Jonah Jackson and Taylor Decker. I like our odds here. I really do. Now we're having a lot better offensive line play to the right of Ragnow this season. I mean, Laporta's doing a hell of a job. We know what Sewell's all about. Vaitai hasn't been in for a couple weeks. I don't even know why, he's on this sheet right here, but I didn't make the sheet. I just created the sheet, if that makes sense. So anyway, this is the Panthers 5-2-4 base defense versus a Lions 11 personnel with one tight end. So I personally wouldn't run that if I was a Lions and they had a 5-2-4 in. I would probably want to switch to a 12 personnel, which is right here. I would want to have an extra tight end in for two reasons. One, I'm going to want Laporta to get free. I want him to get up over top of Luvu, right? And, with St. Brown, who's probably going to be out, you're going to have probably Khalif Raymond over here on the right side. And you'll have Reynolds over here on the left side. I don't think that Jameson Williams is going to take the majority of those snaps just yet. So anyway, what I'm trying to show you here is where Brown is going to line up. He's going to be lining up over Decker or Jonah Jackson. And then Brian Burns is just outside of him. So this is going to be a tough day over here for these guys. And the Lions are going to have to figure out a way to defend it, especially when Luvu can, stunt over top here and mix it up and come right in behind. I see them, when I watch a little bit of tape, he does that. He'll come creeping right through here and get right through this gap when these guys come crashing down. So there's a lot of options here. This is the Panthers nickel defense. And in the nickel defense, you can see that the Lions have plenty of coverage here when we're in 11 personnel. This has given us 3 wide receiver options, 1 tight end, and a running back. Lions run this personnel grouping quite a bit. But in this setup, you're going to have Brown on the right side when they're in a nickel and Burns on the right side. So they flip sides. Luvu also flips sides. So they go heavy on the right up front. They go heavy in the middle on the left side. Does that make sense? And I'm sure they flip back and forth depending on what side of the field they're on, right? Strong side, weak side. It depends on what side of the field they're on. They're going to be flipping their guys back and forth, just like the Lions do too. But we have plenty of coverage. Our offensive line's been playing great. What I wanted to see, though, is I want to see them in this 12 personnel when they're in a nickel. And right here, when you have Burns and Brown, what is the left side of the defense, but the right side of the offense, you have, let's just say Vaitai's in Sewell, and you have Laporta. You got 3 guys here that can keep these 2 from getting back. Right? I would slide Brock Wright to this side and Laporta to the other side so that Laporta doesn't have to block and he can get out and catch the pass. Wright does an excellent job at blocking too. When Luvu crashes down this gap right here, right? This is where I'm saying Montgomery needs to come up and meet him right at the line. Not wait back here in front of Goff. He needs to get right up in this gap, make the play, and give Goff that extra 2/10 of a second to get the ball off. All right, I'll probably jump back into this in a second. There's some more I wanted to show you on that, but we'll get into some more breakdowns like this. We're actually gonna do some game tape coming up. We had a lot going on last week, as you guys know. So I'll be doing a little bit better job of some game tape in that here pretty soon. We're gonna be sharing with you guys. So the keys for the defense and the Lions and how the Lions offense can overtake it, right? To me, it's not going to be as easy as what people think. But in order for these Lions to be successful in attacking this defense, they need to find a way to get the run game going early. They need to get this defense guessing. The Lions match up very well, like I just said. I mean, they've got plenty of coverage across the offensive line as long as everybody stays healthy. If the Lions lose a couple of players during this game and the Panthers are still healthy, this defense will overtake the Lions pretty quickly. The Carolina defense won't be too much of a challenge if the Lions stay healthy. But again, like I just said, vice versa. If the Lions lose a couple of players, it's going to be a long day at the office. I hate to even say this, about any team, because it can always come back to bite you, right? When I say that it won't be a challenge. But this is a team, the Panthers team that's not finishing right now. They're not finishing. They're lacking big plays on the offense. The defense is not getting the critical stops when they need it. And let's just be honest, the Lions are on fire on defense, and they're warming up on offense, and they're doing a great job on both sides of the ball. Question 3. It came in this week. Which QB is going to show up and have a better performance and a bigger impact on the game, negative or positive, and why? And I think if I understand or understood this question, at least this is how I answered it, is who's going to have the better game, Goff or Young? Are they going to have a negative day that impacts the game, or a positive day? I think that's what the question's asking me here. And now let's dive into it. So the impact of Jared Goff for the Detroit Lions and Bryce Young for Carolina is a game matchup that will depend on various factors, for sure. And I'm going to start with Goff. The biggest advantage right now for Goff has been his experience. And during the growing pains of the Lions' complete rebuild in 2021 through 2022, Goff couldn't buy a game, right? He couldn't win games. He just couldn't. He didn't have enough firepower. He didn't have enough guys on both sides of the ball to do their job. Mostly, due to a huge lack in offensive weaponry and having, the youngest, or the second youngest, at least the top 3 youngest team, 2 straight seasons. So after the experience factor, I think that Goff is known best for his intelligence, which promotes great game planning and preparedness. Goff will need, to read the Panthers defense quickly, exploit the weaknesses, and execute a balanced offensive attack to get this W. And I think he will. I have no doubt in my mind that Goff is going to execute. So for that, I give the edge to Goff. His ability to manage the game, make quick decisions, and accurately distribute the ball can be a significant asset for the Lions offense. If Goff can get into a rhythm early and find his checkdowns quickly, it's going to be a long day for the Panthers. When Goff hits 6 or 7 guys with a pass, granted, we might have Amon-Ra out, we might have Gibbs out, but when he hits 6 or 7 guys with a pass in one game, the Lions usually win and put up more than 34 points. On the negative side, Goff has thrown an interception in 3 games this season. If this side of Goff comes to play, then the game can kind of turn ugly. One mistake isn't going to beat us, but the Lions cannot turn the ball over to a bad football team and allow them enough momentum to play like a top football team. When that happens and that light switch turns on, and we've seen it with our own team, it can get bad in a hurry. So Goff needs a turnover-free game, which means he also needs to have a good pocket in more than 2.5 seconds to get the ball off, which honestly he's had all season. He's had a great opportunity to get the ball off. He's had a lot of pocket time. The offensive line and the pass blocking ability of the tight ends, I think, is going to be much needed component in this game. Kind of like I was showing you with the personnel, when you're in that 12 personnel and you've got 2 tight ends in to help back up your offensive line. I think that when you're facing a 5-2-4, or when you're facing, a Panthers defense that can get to the quarterback, even though they don't provide a lot of pressure, they can get you, right? They've shown it this season. They don't need to pressure you every single down. They're calculated. They're going to wait for the right opportunity to dial up the blitz to get at you. They're not going to just pressure, and keep you running. Nope, they're going to wait. And hey, to each his own. That's the Panthers' way, apparently. And maybe it's not. Maybe they're just not having, the success that they want to, or deserve to have, for their effort. But it's not showing up in the stat lines right now. Maybe that'll change by the end of the season. But at any rate, the Lions need to keep Goff clean. He needs to have a turnover-free game. And if those two things happen, I don't think that the Lions can really lose this game from an offensive side. But now we'll flip over to Bryce Young. And I really think this is how the Lions are going to win the game, because I think Bryce Young's going to have a bad day. That's just my guess. Throughout his career, Bryce Young has not dealt with adversity much in the game of football. He's only lost 4 games as a starter for Alabama in 21 and 22. He was surrounded by an offensive line that could protect him, that kept him upright. They gave him all day long to throw the ball. He had a running game that took all of the pressure off of him, and receivers who are now starting in all sorts of different teams in the NFL. So he played on a loaded team. And then see, that's one of the detriments of coming from a college football team that wins all the time, is you don't know what type of player you're really getting, because they're on a loaded team. Everyone around him's good. It's going to make them look good. So you really don't know what you have in Bryce Young until he faces adversity. At Carolina, Young has an O-line that last Sunday, couldn't even keep Minnesota's second half blitzers off of him, resulting in 5 sacks from a team that only had 6 sacks through the first 3 games. He's playing with a running game that has been almost non-existent since week 1, averaging 2.7 yards a carry. And on Sunday, against a defense that was ranked 19th in the league, 19th worst in the league, they still only mustered 2.7 yards a carry. He's playing with a group of receivers that have really struggled to get separation. And even against the Minnesota defense that was ranked 25th against the pass, they still couldn't get separation. So let's not overshadow one important point, though, right? I think that you guys know this. Back in April, I had Young as the worst option of the QBs in this draft. I know it was not a very sexy opinion, and that's okay. It was my opinion. I still don't think that Bryce Young deserved to go where he went. Other people felt differently. I just didn't see it. I mean, he has some skills. He obviously, and that's just coming from me sitting in this chair, right? I'm a nobody. I'm just a guy that does this every day now, but you get it. I had Young as the worst option. But yeah, he has skills. He can run the ball. He's mobile when he has to be. He's got a decent arm. But in my opinion, it wouldn't translate to the NFL. And it wouldn't translate to the NFL because of what I just said about his team in Alabama. He had a loaded team. He had everything you could possibly want on a team. All he had to do was show up. And I'm making it sound a lot easier than what it really is. I mean, I know the kid's worked his ass off his entire life to get to where he is. And I'm not going to overshadow that. It's an incredible feat for anybody to do what any NFL player is doing. But to be critical, to be analytical, to find the nuances, of the game that don't work for him, this is one of them. I just don't feel like what he did is going to translate to the NFL because he never faced real adversity. He played on loaded teams with top tier players and an offensive line surrounding him to make plays and help make him look great. He lacks prototypical NFL size. Your average NFL quarterback, I believe, is 6'2.5 inches, 220 pounds, I think is the prototypical size. Pretty close to that. What's Bryce Young? 5'9", 5'10", $180. If he runs and he gets tackled, even by Alex Anzalone, he's gonna get broken in half. This he's too small, in my opinion. There's only been 2 other quarterbacks in the league's history even remotely close to his size that had success. And I'm sure everybody that's listening and watching right now knows who they are. Who were they? Tell me in the chat before I say it. There's two other quarterbacks really close to his size that had some success in this league. I'll come back to that in a minute. So Young is short. He's not really built in a way to change the game on his own when he does decide to run. Doesn't mean he won't run. Doesn't mean he can't run. Just means it's a risk to run. If he wants to take off running, his career could be over before it even starts. He's just too thin, in my opinion. He's going to take a lot of hits. And as those hits pile up, and he's already missed a game. He already missed a game with an ankle injury, I believe. That's just the start, right? It only starts from there and gets worse. But here's the deal. Unless he proves me wrong, which he could. He very well could prove me wrong. He could make a complete fool out of me. And this will forever be on the internet. So you guys can point it out to me later. Sometimes the flashiest toys don't make the best ones because they break too quickly. I think y'all get what I'm saying. We've all had that amazing toy that we loved that was just made way too cheaply, and it broke. And it broke your heart as a kid. So to answer the question, I didn't see anyone drop it in the chat there, but the two quarterbacks that had some success in this league that were way under prototypical size. Now, Drew Brees is one of them. The difference with Drew Brees is I think he was 6 foot, so he was close enough. Hell of a ball player. But the other guy was Doug Flutie. You know, that's what you get. That's how long it's been since you've really had. I mean, Russell Wilson, sure, but I mean, what is he? 5'10"? He's had some success in this league. But when I look at a Russell Wilson compared to a Bryce Young, we're talking two totally different bodies. Russell Wilson has quite a bit of meat on his bone, right? Not Bryce Young. The guy's pretty skinny. So lastly, on this point here, it's no secret. It's no secret that the Carolina staff has only been together for 4 games. And with a rookie quarterback, this is a very young team that's going to really go through some growing pains. And then they're seeing that right now. Just like the Lions did in 2021 and 2022. The difference is we didn't have a rookie quarterback. This is potentially a multi-year rebuild for the Carolina Panthers. And I wouldn't expect anything out of Carolina until probably 2025, just like with what the Lions are doing. So to give you the answer on the question, which was, which QB is going to show up and have the bigger impact? Bryce Young or Jared Goff? And to me, the answer is simple. It's Goff, right? He's going to have the better game. He's going to get the win, and he's going to have the better stats. He's going to show this rookie what it's like to play behind a solid offensive line and how a potent running game operates. Again, this was mostly written before we found out that Gibbs was down with a hamstring injury today. So we'll see. But all we really need is Monty in there. And Reynolds can fill in behind him. But anyway, Young is probably already worried about how many sacks he's going to have to evade or take on Sunday. This could amount to a big, penalty game for the Panthers if they have to protect Young by holding, right? If the Lions really start to eat and get loose on Sunday, I have no doubt in my mind that, they're going to want to do something to protect Young, and that's going to turn into a lot of penalties. Or, hey, we could see it the other way too, where they just don't call anything like they've tried to do all season long. So Young is really under all the pressure here. He's under all the pressure to succeed, and the expectations of being the number 1 overall draft pick, and he's 0-4. And it's an away game. So Goff, 100,000% is going to have the better game. Even with all of that being, different, and this is Bryce Young's 3rd season, Goff is going to have the better game. 100%. 100,000%. I think Goff's going to have a great game. Home crowd is going to be epic on Sunday. Look, we've been to a couple amazing home games already this season. I think this one might outclass the rest, to be honest with you. I mean, nothing beats opening day, but I think this momentum is only getting, faster and bigger by the day. And there's going to be a lot of excited Lions fans walking into Ford Field during the second quarter of the NFL season at 3-1. It's a little bit different at 0-0 starting the season, or 0-1 starting the season, or 1-0 starting the season. They're 3-1, and the rest of the NFC North sucks. So it's a good time to be a Detroit Lion. All right, question 4. Good old Jameson Williams question. About time we got to this one. Is Jameson Williams going to play a significant role this weekend versus the Panthers? Follow-up question. Should the Lions really mess with a good thing? I think that's a great question. I really do. I think it's a great dual question. I apologize. I got to keep drinking tonight. My old thyroid surgery is acting up on me and throat gets really tired. So I don't think that JMO's going to have an incredible game by any means. And thank you, Mark in Detroit, for sending this question in this week. Appreciate it, bud. So according to today's injury report, JMO's healthy. And he's on track to suit up, finally. And Jameson Williams is now entering one of the most anticipated Detroit Lions seasons in decades. And maybe the exact right time, now that Amon-Ra is most likely out for Sunday's game. But let's recap a little bit about where we've come from from the beginning of the season, or the beginning of last season till now. Jameson Williams was drafted in 2022. He missed the first 11 games of his rookie season, recovering from his ACL. And when he returned, he struggled. He caught only 1 pass in 6 games on 9 targets. He was said to have issues with the playbook, running routes in 2022, and was the main reason why he didn't get as many targets or as much playing time in 2022. He had a few temper tantrums on the sideline, one of them that I witnessed when I was watching the Green Bay game. And I'm sure that did not go over well with DC. And matter of fact, today's press conference of DC, or yesterday's press conference of DC, I think it was yesterday's, he made some comments that I could tell were pointed at Jameson Williams. And it was basically this: we need him to come in and just be a role player, basically. I don't care about stats. I don't care about yards. I don't care about anything. I just need you to come in and be a role player. Now, he didn't call out JMO, right? But it was in the same breath as answering questions about JMO. So DC doesn't want him to come in and have to, be a world beater and be the number 1 wide receiver and, get 150 yards and, 3 TDs. No, he needs him to come in and fit a role, be a team player, and help the team win. Because that's the only thing that matters, is wins and losses. Not one individual on this team matters over another. And that's what he was saying in this press conference. And I thought it was spot on. And I think it's perfect. And that's the kind of team that the Detroit Lions are. And that's why you're not going to see any one person on this team really have amazing breakout days unless they catch fire in a bottle that day. If they've got the hot hand, they're going to feed them. If they've got the hot hand, they're going to throw it to them. But other than that, they're going to spread it out. They want to win as a team. And I think that's a very, very, very effective way to win, is by getting everybody involved. All right, so let me finish this on JMO. So he had those temper tantrums in 2022 as well, that I'm sure, like I said, they didn't rest well with DC. He came into 2023 healthy, finally, full offseason. He's prepared, so you think. He's had a full reset to kind of relaunch what will hopefully become a very promising NFL career. But, and again, for the second straight year, Williams had been prevented from playing with his team. This time for gambling on a non-NFL game on the grounds of a club facility. It's now been 5 weeks since the start of the NFL season, in 7 weeks since Williams injured his hamstring on August 16th. Thus, he was, held out of the 2 preseason games, right, after that injury. Games that Dan Campbell had said he expected and wanted for Williams to get a healthy dose of snaps and maybe, just maybe, find his footing with some meaningful playing time and targets. More importantly, he wanted to build a relationship between him and Goff, develop that timing, that chemistry, that camaraderie, which is much needed between, a quarterback and a wide receiver. Just like how Goff goes out and throws with Amon-Ra during the offseason. They're building their timing. They're building their chemistry. I'm sure you all seen the no-look pass by Goff to Amon-Ra. That's all timing. It's all muscle memory. So here we are. Jameson Williams is back. He is once again healthy. He has had almost 2 years to learn the offense. And he has no more excuses, no more passes from here on out. What I will say is what we need to do, in my opinion, is temper our expectations a little bit. And here's why. He hasn't played in any meaningful snaps in a game since August 11th. And even then, very minor, very bad game for him, actually. And just like I said about Watson and Jones last week for Green Bay, it's going to be the same for Williams. He's going to have to go out. He's going to have to take a hit a few times and get up before he feels comfortable again. With that, I expect Williams to be on a very limited pitch count. Dan Campbell said it too, that he can't bring Williams back in after all this time and give him 60 plays. Just can't do it. Regardless of Amon-Ra's health, right? And if Amon-Ra is in the game or not, I think that it's going to take, a couple of half games for Williams to really get his feet underneath him again. I would say by game 3, if we're not seeing a bunch of production out of Williams, a few catches a game. I mean, you look at the stats. I mean, you see Amon-Ra, if he's got 7 catches in a game, that's a lot. 8 catches in a game, that's a lot. Josh Reynolds, Khalif Raymond, if they're getting 3 catches, 4 catches in a game, that's a lot for them. Right now, anyway. So if he comes in and he gets 2-3 catches the first couple of games, 40, 50 yards, nothing wrong with that. I think that if you temper your expectations, things are going to work out just fine. And we'll see. We'll see if J-Mo's really ready and if he's going to do it in the NFL or if he isn't. But it's going to take a few games. And I'm definitely not going to write the dude off until after the end of the season and see where he's at. He still deserves an opportunity, after all of this. And he sure does have some big play potential. But we're all yearning to see some splash from this team too, and I get it. You really want to see more. You want to see the downfield stuff, the high flying, right? The what was St. Louis's old moniker? The greatest show on turf. We want to see that come back again. These aren't the Randy Moss days. These aren't the Jerry Rice days. These aren't, the days of seeing receivers going for 80, 90-yard touchdowns. It barely happens. Barely happens. So I think that until, he gets his feet underneath him, I'm just not going to expect, anything right now. And I'm just going to hope for the best. One, I'm going to hope he stays healthy. And that we don't have to continue to deal with injuries. Because if he gets injured again, it'll probably be the last time he plays for Detroit. That's my opinion. But I saw the way Dan Campbell looked at that one press conference when he injured his hamstring. And he was not happy. So I feel like they've kind of had enough. But we'll see. I could be totally wrong in reading, the facial expressions off of Dan Campbell's face. For me, it's this simple for Jameson. Decoy, decoy, decoy. Right? As long as Williams can be a decoy and stretch the field, that's all we need him to do right now. Pulling that extra defender from the box is going to be key to the Lions offense opening up against this defense that likes to really slam the box heavy in a 5-2-4. So what's your thoughts on JMO? Drop it in the chat. Let me know. You think Jameson's going to come out and have a banger game, or is he just going to kind of glide through this one and be the big decoy that he really needs to be? Or is it going to be a little bit of both? Let me know down in the chat. How many yards? How many catches? I think he gets maybe 3 targets. I don't know. Really haven't thought about it. Other than what I'm writing and what I'm speaking about, I really haven't thought about, a good amount of stats for him for the rest of the season. The one thing that I don't want to see the Lions do is kind of ruin a good thing. All right, question 5. And then I'm going to get into the keys of the game, and then we're going to wrap it up. So question 5 is another good question, if I could find it. Emmanuel Moseley. All right, so what's going on with Emmanuel Moseley, and when are we going to see this guy fly? Apparently I missed who the question was from. I apologize if you sent the question in and I forgot your name. I will try to catch you on Sunday when I do the other show. All right, so Moseley, yeah, great question. I think a lot of this stuff's kind of been answered through the week with Dan Campbell's press conferences. But let's recap who Moseley is, because we haven't seen him yet. So Moseley signed a 1-year, $6 million contract this offseason with the Detroit Lions. Coming off a torn ACL last September, the Lions knew that there was a chance he wouldn't be ready to start this season. He started really trending, in the right direction, and then his recovery hit a couple of bumps. At first, reportedly, he needed a minor follow-up surgery to the knee just before training camp. And then second, after the Lions decided to activate him from the physically unable to perform list, and just before the start of the season, he also suffered a hamstring injury in practice. Which, honestly, I don't think it's that uncommon. I mean, when you are rehabbing one area of your body and you're putting all of that stress on the other side of your body that's kind of carrying the weight, right? I mean, if you're rehabbing your left, all of your weight's going on your right. So, I mean, it makes sense as, to why he would suffer a hamstring injury. I mean, just from that sense alone, that it's a stress, factor. Things are bound to happen during recovery like that, especially when you start to go a little bit harder. But anyway, he suffered a hamstring injury in practice. And, like I said, often your body is adjusting. You're straining other parts of your body. It's going to happen. The only issue I have with how Moseley's deal was handled is that the Lions lost Starling Thomas in a move that put Moseley on a 53-man instead of the reserve pup, which would have allowed him to return this weekend anyways. There's no way. I mean, if they were to go back and do this all over again, there's no way you lose Starling Thomas. We could have really used him, especially after Khalil Dorsey went down. And CJ Gardner-Johnson now. So, his return will always have a strong impact on this defense. He is a very experienced player. He's got 45 games in, 33 starts under his belt. In 2021, as a full-time starter for the San Francisco 49ers, Moseley tallied up 11 passes defensed while only allowing a 78 passer rating. Good for 17th of the 77 qualifying cornerbacks. That season alone shows why the Lions wanted to add this piece to their puzzle. In 2022, Moseley was on what many would call breakout watch. And during this time, he started out real hot. He showed his ability to stop the run, get in, up to the ball quickly, eliminate the big plays. And it was so vital for the Niners defense. And he already had the length, right? The speed, the cover ability in man and zone schemes. I mean, both of which made him a top cornerback in 2021. And then that season is what ended in the ACL injury. So with the addition of Moseley to this DB room, Glenn now has more options and most importantly, depth. And the Lions could move Sutton back into the slot corner, position if needed. And I guess what I mean by that is now that Branch is also out for this weekend, they really could move him back around to his natural position, or at least where he played a lot with the Steelers. He was primarily a slot corner with the Steelers. And he began working the outside role near the end of his career with the Steelers. And honestly, I mean, that is what the Lions brought him in to do, right? Be the number one cornerback. And that's kind of wherever he's going to be needed. But if you think about it, if Branch is going to require some time to heal up and Mosley can get up to speed and get his game legs back pretty quickly, the door is wide open for the Lions to have all these options. And I'm having a rough night with this throat. So Brian Branch has been this team's starting nickel throughout the entire season so far, and he's done an amazing job. He's played at a very high level. Moving Sutton back down to the nickel position would be a discretionary move by Glenn. And I guess maybe Glenn would probably only be compelled to do so if Branch really needed some time on the sideline. And if we think about it logistically here, Jacobs can remain the number one. I mean, he's been doing okay. He's been a liability the majority of the season until this last game. But if you left Jacobs at 1, you slide Mosley to 2, or vice versa, Sutton can slide down to nickel. And I guess the only reason why I would do that is because Will Harris really struggles with coverage, especially in man coverage. And I don't want to see Will Harris continue to get torched. He played his best ball in Detroit as a slot corner in 2022. So I guess you can really forget everything I just said, but he just hasn't played great ball this season. The Lions have way too many options, though. I mean, when you really think about it, they're really deep. And what I'm doing right now is I'm just kind of spitballing right here. Like, what do the Lions really need to do? Where are they going to put these guys to help maintain the best depth and the best players on the field? The point that I'm going to state, for the 5th time here is they have depth. They have options. If Branch, needs rest and rehab for a long time, on this ankle, they could keep him out through the bye week. Or bye week is in week 9. It's just a couple of short weeks away. And we have plenty of guys that can step in right now, and then Branch can be back for the Monday night game. I'm not saying that he's going to be out that long, and I'm only saying that because Dan Campbell, again, promised us in the press conference today that there was no IR concerns. Who knows? This is all just an opinion. I'm not really considering the injury report that'll be out on Sunday morning because I don't know it yet. So we'll see what happens. All right, keys to the game. I think that this one's fairly straightforward, right? Let me jump into the chat. Looks like we got Robert Fournier in there. Back to the JMO thing. JMO, 4 targets, 2 receptions, 41 yards. I think that would be commendable for JMO to do that in his first game. Quite honestly. I think that would be great. All right, keys to the game. So pressure, right? Pressure Bryce Young. Early, often, all the time. The Carolina O-line has been nothing short of bad so far this season. Through 4 games, they have given up 58 pressures, 9 hits, and 7 sacks against the bottom barrel of the NFL defenses. They faced the 29th ranked Vikings, the 22nd ranked Falcons, the 23rd ranked Seattle Seahawks, and the Saints ranked 10th, but the Falcons had the best pass rushing defense that they faced so far. Getting pressure and making Young uncomfortable really starts in the trenches, right? I mean, the Lions are one of the best defenses right now getting pressure. The Panthers' offensive line is one of the worst when under pressure. In true passing downs, that is. Young is graded by PFF a 47 on all plays when under pressure. So let's take a look at why. Why is it so low? I think you're going to like this. The offensive line has one player, right tackle. Excuse me. All right. Right tackle, Taylor Morton, with a pass blocking grade above 70. His current grade is 74.1. He's number 30 out of 68 tackles graded. Right tackle, Calvin Throckmorton, that's a heck of a name, is graded as 60.7. And he's ranked 31 out of 73 guards ranked. Second year left tackle, Ikem Ekwonu, is graded out at a 54.3, which is good for 54 out of 68 tackles graded. Left guard Zavala, get this, he's ranked 73 out of 73. Dead last. And the Panthers center, Bradley Bozeman, is ranked 41.8, which is good for 24 out of 36 centers graded by PFF. So what does that tell you? The offensive line is terrible. We got one guy with a decent grade. Look at the Lions. Decker has our worst grade, 57.8. Jonah Jackson, 65.8. Ragnow, 81.6. Vaitai, 78.6 when he was in. Sewell, 75.2. I don't know how current those numbers are, but this was on PFF today. I can only assume that it's current. And I can check here in just a minute too. But here's a bit of the odd data that I found out of all this. I noticed that the tight ends and a rookie wide receiver, Jonathan Mingo, have better pass blocking grades than all Panther offensive linemen not named Morton. I'll say that again. The tight ends and a rookie wide receiver named Jonathan Mingo have better pass blocking grades than all of the Panther offensive linemen not named Taylor Morton. That's sad. So collectively, this group is horrendous. And the Lions should be able to eat all day long. I can't say his name today. Hutch should be lined up over Kwanu and working inside on Zavala to get the best opportunity in this game. Right off the get-go. I wouldn't even put him on the outside. I'd put him right on the inside. Buggs should be able to control the left side, and Aleem should be able to outclass Bozeman and Zavala all day too. I see a lot of opportunity here for Kaminsky. You know, he's what Dan Campbell says the secret sauce. And we've been saying that since preseason. You know, both Andy and I, when we broke down some tape on Kaminsky with the Beasley hit by Branch, you just see how valuable somebody like Kaminsky is and how he's able to be in the right place at the right time to create and produce for others. And he's so good at doing it. He truly is the secret sauce of this defense. So I see a lot of opportunity here, like I said, for Kaminsky to have some really impactful plays. But no matter who lines up in a 3 technique, inside or outside, is going to have a big day. I said the same thing about the Seattle game. They were decimated up front. And the Lions couldn't find a way to win. But this is different. This is a different defense. Yes, in a matter of 3 weeks, it can happen. Confidence and momentum go a very long way in the NFL. And the Lions have that right now by the bunches. They're like the most loved team in the NFL. They're the most followed team, the most watched team, the fans are just incredible. Filling up the stadium. Filling up other stadiums. It's not even our stadium. I mean, Green Bay looked like Ford Field. You saw what Penei Sewell said after the game. So look at all the blue. It looks like Ford Field, and it certainly did. So these Panthers receivers outside of Thielen, they haven't had a lot of success this season. If the Lions don't get 2 interceptions this game, I would be surprised. This could be the best defensive game we see, at least on paper. But like I said, the same thing was noted about Seattle. We were completely dumbfounded at the results of that game. So how can this be different? Then this is where we're going to end the show tonight. Is I'm going to go into a little bit of how it can be different because of Bryce Young. And it can be different because, look, he's only, his 4th game in the NFL. He has the lowest drop rate in the NFL, or one of the lowest drop rates in the NFL with on-target passes. That should tell us that incompletions are not the byproduct of the receivers dropping the passes, but poorly thrown balls. Young is struggling in his pass attempts to the intermediate left, intermediate right, and anything deep left or center. His highest percentage targets are intermediate center, short left, short right, and short center. 4.9% of pass plays are for more than 20 yards. He is 1 of 5 on throws over 20 yards. His medium zone, or the 10 to 19 yard routes, Young has a 44% completion rate. He's 12 of 27. In the short zone, or 0 to 9 yard routes, Young has a 91.7 completion rate on 33 of 36 attempts. Who's he throwing to is the big question, right? No surprise here that Adam Thielen is the highest graded Panthers offensive player with a PFF grade of 77.5, 0 dropped passes, 33 targets, 18 first downs, and 8 explosive plays of 15 plus yards. The running backs. The Panthers are utilizing a heavy screen game with mixed wide receiver and running back screens with a lot of plays that are happening behind the line of scrimmage, for which Young has completed at a rate of 21 for 21. Hubbard and Sanders have been targeted a total of 33 times with 26 receptions. Young's stat lines almost make it too easy to predict where he's going to throw the ball. The Lions can take away his deep game altogether. I mean, you don't even really have to account for it. At least every snap you don't have to. I mean, he's not throwing the ball downfield. And if he does, he's not connecting at all. And with that in mind, I would love to see this happen. And this is how the Lions win, in my opinion, on defense. I know they're going to put up bunches on offense. I hope. I'm expecting them to. But if the Lions were to sit in a medium shell coverage, right? Work the inside zone under technique with outside man coverage and single high safety operating out of the 4-2-5, they can shut it all down. Where's he going to go? And that's where I'm going to bring this back on the screen again. So let me find the right one here. So you're going to have the Lions defenses up at the top here. Make this a little bigger. And what you see here is this is the Lions base defense. So it's 4-3. Or in this case, it's a 5-2-4. Okay. They got 2-3 techniques on the outside. You got 3 down linemen, and then you've got 2 linebackers and 4 defensive backs. This defense is great. This is not what I would use, right? But this defense is going to shut down the run. But I think it's a little bit of a liability for the Lions to stay in this defense when this Panthers offense is largely throwing balls right here. right on this line right here. So if this is the line of scrimmage, this blue line, you got 5, 10, 15, 20 yards out. Each one of these lines represents 5 yards, okay? All of the balls are being thrown right here, under 10 yards. Now, I wouldn't think that the linebackers would be 10 yards off the ball, but that's just where they are, I guess, on this sheet that I didn't make. The point that I'm trying to make is if you're sitting in a short shell or this medium shell, let me find a 4-2-5 nickel defense. Here we go. Here's a nickel. If you're sitting in the nickel, right? 4-2-5. You got 4 linemen, 5 DBs, 2 linebackers. And who do they have? They are in a 12 personnel, so they've got 2 tight ends, 2 wide receivers, a running back behind Young. When you sit in a short shell or the medium shell, right, you're wanting to keep everything underneath about the 12-yard line. So Walker would probably move over to be the single high safety, right? Joseph would be swapped out for another DB. It wouldn't be, I mean, I guess he could stay in the game, but you could also put another cornerback in like Mosley, right? So you have Sutton. We'll say Joseph is Mosley. You have Jacobs, and I guess Will Harris. I'd rather have Joseph than Will Harris, actually. But you get what I'm saying here. Those guys can all stack this box. So you bring Anzalone down, you bring Rodrigo down, you bring Walker over to the middle, single high safety. You bring Joseph all the way down. Sutton could be up on the line and jam Thielen, right? Your second cornerback in can sit back in that 8, 9, 10-yard zone. And if they sit in those, squat in those zones, you've got the linebackers to cover the middle. You've got a cornerback to cover this area, right, on both sides. And you got the outside guys covering man. So they're man-to-man. They're manned up. These guys are playing inside zone. Walker's free safety in it wherever he's got to go. They're not going to be able to run on that. They're not going to be able to pass on that because Bryce isn't throwing the ball downfield. So I really think if they sit into a defense like this for most of the game, they're going to have a lot of success. So they can run the nickel. It's just, my coverage scheme that I like to run the best or one that I feel that can work well against Bryce Young, being that, 80% of his balls are being thrown behind the line of scrimmage or less than 5 yards. I mean, it just seems asinine to me. How is he an NFL quarterback and he's not throwing the ball past the 9-yard line or past 9 yards? You know what I mean? It just doesn't make any sense. So again, would love to see the Lions sit into a medium shell. Medium meaning keep everything 12 yards and in. Work the inside zone under technique. So you've got your 2 guys, your two DBs on the inside working the under. So if Thielen were to come across, they're going to get underneath and trail, right? But Sutton in this defense would be manned up, and Jacobs would be manned up with Mingo. If they have 2 tight ends in, or if they've only got 1 tight end and another wide receiver, it doesn't really matter. The DBs will be able to pick up all of them. And then the only person you have to worry about is who's coming from behind the line. And again, what do they run the most right now? Carolina's running a lot of screen game. Well, you already know if they're trying to let you come in, it's a screen. Don't fall for it. Sit back. Let your linebackers get free. Leave the defensive line where it is. Send a DB in that case. Go in and bust it up. There's a lot of options. Look, I'm nowhere near an Aaron Glenn. Not even close. Not even 1% close. But from a simplistic, analysis, this is the style of defense that I feel works best against Carolina because they're not doing anything with their offense right now. They really aren't. They don't have a good offensive line, so you're going to be able to get a lot of pressure. They're not throwing the ball downfield, so unless the running game's working, they're not going to be able to throw the ball at all. And if they can't move the ball, it's going to be 3 and out after 3 and out after 3 and out. And it's going to get pretty silly for the Panthers in Ford Field. and the Lions are really going to run away with it. But again, I don't want to count out this Carolina defense. I think that they're going to be a lot tougher than what we're giving them credit for. So the last 2 points that I'm going to make is kind of the first 2 points. Number one, the Carolina defense is letting up more than 25 points a game. You're not going to win games. The stat is there. If you let up more than 20 points, 85% of the time you're going to lose the game. So Carolina giving up 25.5 points. I don't even know what the Lions are averaging right now. 26.5 points, I think it is, or 26.25 points per game. There's no reason why they can't hang 34 on the Panthers. And that's the number that I'm going with. I think that the Lions are going to put up 34 on the Panthers. The last point, which we talked about earlier, is the Lions need to contain Luvu, Burns, and Brown. Those are the 3 dynamic players on defense that this offensive line is going to have a tough day with. But if they're unique enough in how they operate, right? If Luvu is in, which he's going to be in a lot, he's going to be in on the majority of plays, then depending on where he lines up, I mean, if he lines up over Porta or on Porta's side, why wouldn't you attack him? Again, depending on what defense they're in, and with the lack of pressure that they're getting, and I'll have to go watch a little bit more tape, but I didn't see where they were sacrificing pressure to stay in coverage. And what I mean by that is, and I'll throw this back up. If these guys are supposed to rush to get pressure, right? Instead of rushing, maybe they're only rushing the middle 2 and they're keeping, the other 2 just kind of hanging here covering these zones. I didn't see Carolina doing that. I saw them rushing all 4, right? Or sometimes all 5, depending on what the tight ends were doing. If the tight ends were going and you had Burns on this side, no, it wasn't Burns on that side. It was somebody else. Anyway, if they're running a route and they're not staying home, right? Well, of course they got to pick them up, or a linebacker's got to pick them up like Luvu. So if they're not staying home and they're rushing every single play, there's no reason why the Lions cannot get, let me go back up. There's no reason why the Lions cannot get Luvu separated, right? So you got Laporta here. Luvu's here. Houston is on this side in this personnel group. 5-2-4 base defense is what I plan on seeing a lot from the Panthers. So they're putting a lot of bodies up on the line. They're going to try to get pressure, but they're not getting pressure. The stats say they're not, but they are getting sacks. So they're dialing plays up more efficiently, which means you need quick hitter plays. Well, what's the easiest way to get the ball off? You've got to get your guys up and out in a hurry. Get your guy in motion. Take Gibbs out of the backfield if he's in the game. Take I doubt Monty will, but you could take Monty out of the backfield and put him in motion and get him up behind Laporta and whoever's going to be in over here, whether it's Jones or not. And you could run your own screen plays and get rid of the ball early and get these blockers going north. Getting Sewell kicked out to go north and to pick up the block on Williams or Houston. You got to get the ball out quick. That's going to be the name of the game. That's how you contain Luvu, Burns, and Brown. You get the ball out quick. And I know we all want to see the long ball. We want to see some deep balls, and we will. May not be this weekend, but we will. I think that we're going to see plenty of big plays this weekend. Look, the Lions have been very successful so far through the season. They've had a great season. And it's going to continue on Sunday. So that's all I had for you guys tonight. Do yourself a favor, check out pff.com. There's a lot of great stats and analysis that you can really get lost in, like I did tonight. There's a lot of things that it's a lot of numbers. It's a lot of stuff to talk about. And when you're by yourself, sometimes stats are the only way to stay on track and to get things, put out there for you guys to digest and to think about. But that's all I had for tonight. So do me a favor, check out villainsquad.store, get your t-shirt game elevated, and add one to your collection. And see us all on Sunday. We'll be out at the game We'll be doing some interviews. I think we're going to be in Eastern Market. I think we're going to go hit up the super fans, do the Eastern Market crowd on Sunday morning. Again, if you want to send us your questions for next week, feel free to email it, info@rockdownpodcastnetwork.com. You can always DM our page. Do us a favor, like, share, subscribe, send it to a friend. It's the easiest way to support us. And we'll see you guys. We'll see you on Sunday. Go Lions. I got the Lions 34-2. You know, I think I'm going to give them 13. I think the Panthers are going to get 1 touchdown and 2 field goals. So 34-13 Lions win. And that's what I'm going with. It's not going to be a huge win. It'll be just enough. All right, y'all. Take care. Have a good night. One Pride. We'll see you later.
So, we look like we're ready. But this is day one. It's about the work. And I've said that from day one, and it'll always be the same message. It's about work. You got to go earn your right every year. It doesn't matter what the players are, the coaches, expectations, where you were, where you're going. We got to work, man.
Wants to throw it to Stewart. He caught it. He's going with a first down. Oh, yes. The big man dives down to the 31-yard line. Oh, that is beautiful.
Let me tell you something. I love this team now. I got goosebumps, gentlemen. I love this team.
Fields looking pressured, hit from behind, taken down. Aiden Hutchinson got him.
What do you think about the secondary?
Just look at the name, CJ Gardner-Johnson. You drafted Branch.
It started off with that huge hit on Beasley.
McCollum things out. There's a big hit right away. And boom!
Touchdown, Detroit Lions. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Goff dropped it in the bucket that time.
We're in our window now to win.
Aaron Rodgers exits the NFC North as a loser.